Well, hey, everybody, glad to be with you again. And I have not just one, but two special guests today I'm super excited about. And let me introduce John Geraci first. He has had over 40 years of executive leadership experience before becoming the founder and CEO of Ci2 Advisors. His prior experiences include president at Information Associates, president at Blessing White, now GP Strategies, partner at the Complex Sale, Executive Vice President at Advent Software, and Managing Partner at Unlimited Connections Consulting. John's also served on the boards of companies like ASM International, Trader Tools, and Folio Dynamics, as well as being an advisor to the CEO at SCRA. When John reflects on his time in executive level leadership, he realizes that effective communication was the leading factor in determining success or failure for business objectives. As the world of work began to change, John knew that communication would be even more difficult to convey effectively, and connecting with, understanding, and inspiring customers would be harder to do than ever. And that's why he founded CI2 Advisors. His passion for this work stems from his belief that when customers feel heard and understood, amazing things can happen within your customer relationships and overall business performance. So John has this amazing background, and let me now introduce you to my another amazing co-host, Blanca Criner, who has her own amazing background. Blanca is the founder of Pronto One LLC, where she helps companies eliminate cultural barriers, improve team dynamics, and boost employee retention. A former banking executive and accomplished marketing leader, Blanca has led business growth and earned national recognition across multiple financial institutions. Originally from Mexico and now rooted in Dayton, Ohio, she's a passionate community builder, certified Maxwell leadership coach, and key leader in the Greater Dayton community transformation movement. Blanca's work includes mentoring youth, empowering professionals, and serving on numerous boards and networking groups to foster leadership, connection, and growth. I almost don't feel worthy to be in the room with you two, by the way, after reading those bios.
Oh, come on. Now read your bio.
Yeah, right. People hear enough about me. No, super. I am super excited. I'm so glad to be with you. And so, real quick, everybody, the reason I even know John is because of Blanca. And Blanca, your bio mentions that you're a connector, and I think that it should say super connector, by the way,
Oh,
because you are definitely so many times. And I'm like, how did you come to know about this person, or how did you meet, come to this event? And they're like, oh, Blanca. And I'm like, I should have known. I should have known. So thanks for both of you for being on the show today. Super excited about this topic. We're going to talk about the power of storytelling. And John, this is something you're passionate about, and in your bio, it led into a little bit about that. But why don't you start us off by just sharing like your journey and why this topic of storytelling even really came to pass in your career?
Well, thanks, Chris. It's great to be here with you and Blanca. And she is a super connector and just a beautiful lady in her heart, in her mind and soul. But it's great to be with both of you. My journey, I was a military brat, and my father was he's a highly decorated soldier. He served almost 9 years in combat.
thank you.
So a lot of learnings from there. I went to West Point and started my leadership journey there. Was in the military for 6 years, and then I went into business. And um, I've always been a supporter of people. I think that human relationships and connections and people are the key. As a matter of fact, the first one of the companies I worked for is a company called MSA, Management Science America, and I was started as a sales rep and went on to be a division president over 15 years. But their motto was "People are the key." And so, in the leadership and journey that a business journey that I've had several successes and a bunch of failures. I think you learn more from those places where you don't. I observe that you have to have a good strategy, certainly in a business. If you don't have a if you have a bad strategy, you can lose. But the other two things that I found are critical, at least have been significant. I think are when you're executing well, you have strong human connections among the cohorts or the teams or the groups that Chris, you talked about it in magnetic leadership, but where you have strong human connections and relationships. And the other thing that's happening in those connections and those relationships is you have leaders who are inspiring other people.
Mhm.
You have leaders who are not micromanaging or not telling people what to do or not. They're inspiring people and getting them to come along and letting their humanness and their creativity and innovation come out. And so I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and the guy asked me, what am I most proud of? And I think what I'm most proud of is the people that I hired and recruited and coached, who went on to do much bigger things than I have. But that's kind of stuck in my mantra of great companies, what makes great companies, and what makes great foundations or communities or churches or whatever. And about 10 years ago, I went to a seminar that it was really a macroeconomic trend seminar. And there were two big trends that they talked about. One was the fast pace of technology. And when I got out of the military, I was in the software industry. So have been experienced disruptive technology for a long time. And what this person said was there are more disruptive technologies occurring right now than ever before, with Web 3.0, with big data, with IoT, with now AI is the predominant one. But the point that he made is they're moving so very, very fast. And one of the things that's happening is there's exponentiation of communication. And we're being bombarded by communications. And whether it's whatever it is, your email, your text, your Slack, whatever it is, chat, people are getting bombarded. And although they had stronger abilities to communicate, there was more disconnection than ever in the workforce. And this was pre-COVID. And now we see what happened during COVID with kids. And the other big trend that somebody talked about is it was a human resource executive, ex-human resource, and she talked about there were at least four, maybe five generations in the workforce. And although at the human level, we're all somewhat the same, there are some really, really big differences between the baby boomers and the millennials and the Gen X. And that would both of those things would make communication and inspiration and understanding people a lot different and a lot harder in today's world, particularly as everybody's racing in the world of work. It's speeding up and everybody's racing. They got way too much to do and not enough time. And so I was worried about that. I was getting ready to leave Trader Tools, and I was worried about that. And I met a lady there who was she was she was a psychologist, and we spent 3 years doing research and trying to understand, first of all, was this really happening? Was there disconnection? Was there miscommunication? How did it impact productivity and negative impacts on businesses? And I could tell you story after story of things that happen. And then we started saying, okay, what can we do about it? I did most of that kind of research. We did the joint research together. I did most of that research, and I read, 60 books on communication, 60 books on leadership. I read tons and tons and tons of stuff. And the big ahas came from the intersection of neuroscience, how does the brain think, and behavioral economics, which is really a study of how do humans really make decisions versus how they tell you they think they make decisions. Mm-hmm. And in that intersection, we found out I could talk for about hours because we wrote a book about it called The Art of the Nudge, but just too complicated. But the two things we found out is that your subconscious brain is the largest part of your brain. 80 to 90% of the activity of your brain occurs there. Wow. And most people don't know it. Your conscious brain is linear, and it deals in facts and figures and numbers. And you can only think about 3, 5, 7, 9. Your subconscious brain has every memory, feeling, smell, taste, all of your senses. Everything is in this big database. And the big aha was that 80% of our human decisions are made in your subconscious brain. And what we found out was your subconscious brain deals in emotions, pictures, and stories. It thinks in stories and narratives. And so when we started looking at this became we found what we call 3 breakthrough ideas. And which is, I'm leading you to a long story about storytelling, but the 3 breakthrough ideas are that your subconscious brain is the largest part of your brain, and it's going on all the time, and it impacts you more than you know. And hardly any of us are aware. As I'm watching you guys now, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been doing this. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in your subconscious brain. And your subconscious brain affects you more than all of us, you and me, more than we know. And we don't know how to speak to it, and we don't know how to engage with it. And it's 80% of what goes on. So, we're spending all of our time talking to the 20% that doesn't make many decisions, right? So the second factor, we found out that your subconscious brain sabotages most of us when we're listening. And we don't really realize that it sabotages us naturally. And the third breakthrough idea we found out was that people don't like to be told what to do. So if you think about those
Really?
things,
Okay, can you repeat that?
people, yeah. People do not like to be told what to do. Past the age of 6, people do not like to be told. So that you think about the fast pace of the world, you think about a lot of miscommunication, you think about these complex ideas of our brain. We said, okay, how can we take that and mold it into something that's very simple, very usable, very pragmatic, that can help people communicate with the subconscious brain more effectively? And we invented something we call the dynamic relationship model, which allows me to think about where I'm in this conversation. Do I need to connect, understand, and inspire? And then we didn't build these, but we morphed 2 tools. One is a story map. How do you tell stories that are inspiring and cause somebody want to come with you versus telling them what to do? And then even more importantly, we nudge something we call transformational listening, which is a build on any of the listening courses you had. We think it's quite different, but it's how do we help people deeply understand others in a way that now I can tell you a story where if you believe in it, you'll be inspired and come along with me. And
Right.
now you have that strong human connection. The two other prongs. We're not in the strategy world. We're not telling you how to execute strategy. We're saying if you have a change initiative, if you have a new project, if you're launching a new product, if you've got a new sales team, if you have a new leadership team, how do you meld those connections and understanding and communication in a way where now you're all inspired to go execute? That's a sorry, a long
No, that's awesome.
explanation of it, but
Well, it's awesome, John, because I was even just talking to somebody that I believe it was even yesterday. I said, when I'm meeting new people, I said I have to hear their name multiple times before it sticks. But if you tell me a story and I meet you for the first time and then I see you a month later or a year later, I'll be like, oh, you're the guy who does this, this, and this, or because the story is sticky, right? And I'll say, and often I'll be like, hey, I'm sorry, I forget your name, but I remember you told me about yourself about this. And it's like
Yes.
so I remember stories, and I have to work harder to remember names or facts or figures.
yeah,
And
it's
I think, and also Chris, um, I have seen Chris coaching, and I have been actually in his room. And as a coach, we have a lot of tools that we can share, right? And I have seen Chris um, exponentially, really sharing a great tool. But a good coach is a good coach only if he can share actually the stories that you have learned with,
Mhm.
in your past, in your life, right? And so I think that when Chris, when you actually are in front of the room, you're just not telling, this is the tool and this is how you use it. It's actually the combination of the two, and you use storytelling all the time,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Well, and
so
apparently I knew what John teaches and didn't even know John yet.
well, it's interesting, Chris. One of the things we talk about we train this in multiple ways, but when we talk about storytelling, we say that everybody has a natural gift for storytelling. Because you sit around the table, you have those narratives from wherever your history is. And however, telling the story about Aunt Jane and her Italian sauce that I could tell you about, that's different than telling a business story. And so there's some nuances. What we help people do is apply these techniques. We're really a how company. There's a lot of leadership and training companies that are a what and why company. We have a why, big why, but we're a how. How do you apply these models pragmatically to your life or your business to increase results? It can be either a productivity for an individual connection, or for a business, it could be revenue, cost reduction, margin improvement, stakeholder value. But how do you apply these models in a very pragmatic way? So it's not just, hey, I learned about this and blah, blah. That's interesting, but how do you apply it? And everybody is inherently good at stories. They don't know how to use them effectively in a business context at the right time, at the right moment. And that's the nuance of what we do that is very powerful and can really help accelerate business results.
And you do a series of workshops, and what I like about what you do is it's essentially the same content, but you help people apply it based on their role, don't you?
We do. We look at four cohorts, if you will, and it's almost any industry. Most of the companies who use our stuff, they're number one, they're people-oriented leaders. So if you're not a people-oriented leader, you just think I can throw people out here, hither and thither, you're not going to gravitate toward what we do. But they also are in businesses where you want long-term relationships with either your internal people or customers. And it's not, so I wouldn't go teach our stuff to the greeter at Walmart.
Hmm.
It's just not. And so, and what we do, so we can cover all industries, but we look at one of the things we found early on, our first rev of this, we're on our like seventh rev now of the training and our AI tool. But the first rev, we taught a generic storytelling workshop. And what we found about that, we found is it was interesting and people liked it, and it was very hard to apply.
Mm.
And what we doing, continuous, our company is Ci2 Advisors, stands for continuous improvement innovation, because that's what we think individuals need to do. We need to do continue in this world of work. You got to be continuously learning and innovating and improving. But what we learned is if we look at it, say you're in a sales team, or let's say even a church, Chris, I know you're a pastor, and if we said, okay, what might be the stories that people in churches would need to tell? And where are the situations where they need to apply transformational listening? And then what we know about adult learning, when you're working on stuff that's really important to you versus a theoretical model, you learn it faster and you can apply it. So what
Mm.
we do is we have, going back to your comment, we have a version for sales, a version for pre-sales people, a version for services, a version for product management, a version for leaders. And what's consistent is the concepts are consistent. What's different is you as a pastor, now you're an executive coach. As a pastor, you talk to a certain level of people at a certain time. As a coach, you talk to different people. So what you got different personas you're talking to people. And then also the timing of the conversations change. And when do you need to either be listening really well or inspiring really well? And so that's the nuance of what we do, so they can apply it to get really fast personal results in their functional discipline.
Yeah, this reminds me too about Stephen Covey's seek first to understand, then be understood, is what you're really, a lot of this is talking about, right? It's knowing when to apply which side of this do you need to really be focusing on. And I think this is one of the hardest skills, like you said earlier, that we are, and I heard somebody else talk about this recently, just how connected we are digitally and globally, but how disconnected we are relationally still, right?
Well,
Like,
it's all surface. It's
yeah.
surface. Think about kids today. They go on Facebook and what do they see? That they're not good enough, that somebody's it's so
Yeah.
absolutely the disconnection. And
Mhm.
it's interesting, Chris, because I think I said this to you the first time we met, because I know you have your Maxwell coach, and people ask me, what's the difference and why is what you do unique? And I say, well, you may not believe this, but if you believe that making strong personal connections and by understanding people and then inspiring them are two of the most critical things you can do as a leader or a champion or a coach or whatever you are. We go deep into this, and most other training companies or whatever do it at a surface level, and we apply it deeply. And I say this because number one, this is what I'm passionate about, and I don't know how many of your followers on here are Christians, and I'm just saying, if you're not a Christian, I'm going to say this, or you don't. It's okay, whatever your belief is. You have to believe that Jesus was a good leader. He was there 3 years, and now 2 billion people are following him. So if you believe that, and what I believe is two of the things that he did better than anybody that I'd like to emulate is he deeply understood people. He deeply understood people. And then he would never tell them what to do. He would tell them a story and they'd come along with you. So part of my comment is, wouldn't you want to emulate that? What if you could get really, 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 really good at that? So anyway.
Well, and I think too, one of the things I remember years ago, it really hit me as I was a young leader and maturing in my leadership and paying attention was, I actually had I was youth pastor at the time, and I was on a trip with a group of youth, of what our youth group, and one of the kids said to me, "You asked that girl," because we had like two groups came together for a project in Pennsylvania, actually, where you're from, and we were together, and this one kid said, "You asked so many questions." I was like, "Because I'm really curious about people and where they're coming from," and what I understood was, and I started to really see it then was how people love to talk about themselves. They love to tell you about themselves. And I've been in so many conversations, and I don't get offended by this. I just recognize this that I can be in a conversation with whether I've known this person for a minute or 10 years, and I just ask a series of questions just to try to get to hear about them and their story and everything. And rarely do they ask me any questions. And it's like I could walk away, and I actually heard Jay Abraham, the marketing guru, he said he told the story in one of his books I was listening to that he was on the rooftop of this hotel in another country for a project, and he just kind of talked to this guy that he met right then on the rooftop of this hotel, and basically had this 2 hour conversation with him, just asking him questions, and that guy told him, "You're the most interesting person I've ever met." He said that man didn't ask me one question. But he thought Jay was the most interesting person he'd ever met.
Well, if you that I mean, I know many stories like that. There's a famous story of Abraham Lincoln in that. But if you go back to, you mentioned Stephen Covey, who's fabulous, and I believe Seek First to Understand. And we go deep into how to do that. Not what is it, but how do you do it? And Dale Carnegie wrote in How to Win Friends and Influence People, wrote the same thing, that somebody told the same story you told, different but same ending of the story. The question is, how do you do that? And telling somebody, hey, go ask good questions.
Yeah.
Go be okay. Chris is a great. Go be a better question. No, and so what we do, we've taken it deep into helping people understand the how and practice the how. I mean, Blanca was in. We're doing a workshop this week on listening. She was in it, and what we do is a lot of less didactic, less talking, and doing. And they practice and do it, and they come out and they can do the thing, and it's just beautiful to see people because a lot of them understand the what and the why. I mean, Stephen Covey has said, seek first to understand. I read his book 40 years ago. After I read his book, I couldn't do anything differently except for seek first to understand. Now, I'm sure they have other training,
Yeah,
et
you
cetera,
knew
et
what to
cetera.
do. You just didn't know how to do
I
it.
knew what to do, but now how do you do it? And
Yeah.
so, and I mean, the Covey is a phenomenal company. I mean, they're
Yeah.
unbelievable company, and but he was right on to something. What I say is, I don't have 7 habits, I have 3 habits. Go deep in those 3 habits, and
Yeah.
let's teach you how to apply them and really good at understanding people and then inspiring them. How do you inspire them to come along with you? So
And Blanca, I'm interested to hear from your perspective because you have gone through John's workshops, and I'm actually signed up in a couple weeks or so. I'm going to go through the first one myself. What what do you notice about this that might be different than other training or other things you've been a part of?
Well, what I learned is that there is actually really a technique on how to tell a story and how to tell it efficiently in order for the other person to understand it correctly. There is with the tool that I learned is that there is a sequence on how to tell a story in order for example, a company, it can
Mhm.
learn to tell a story about the owner of
Mhm.
how that owner created this company, what inspired him. And so that owner can actually inspire his clients on how he shared his story. And the same thing, maybe companies can say, this is the way that we could tell the story to our clients so they can understand our product better. So guess what? Sales will be done more efficiently because the story is being told properly. So I actually was very fascinated by the way that the tool is so easy to use, and it helps you to create the story. And obviously with artificial intelligence, this story is kind of like making the story for dummies, because
Yeah.
you don't have to be a rocket science to actually input the prompts for the tool,
Mhm.
and the story will be actually shared to you, so you can share it with your either your client, with your customers, or even if you're an individual that you would like to be a better storyteller, tell your story itself. So it's
Well, it's great.
great.
I'm glad to hear this, especially because, I always tell people I'm a simple guy. I learn and try to teach in simple ways because I think that it's so easy to be too complex in our world.
Yeah.
And with all the technology and everything that we're talking about that's out there, you can talk over somebody's head so easily, and they just want to know why it works for them, why it's going to help them, how it's going to help them, right? So, you know, Blanco, you and I initially connected about even meeting John when you connected us, because John, you've not only taken these principles, but you've also said there's technology now to be had, and so you've created AI tools to help with this now, correct?
Yes, and I want to come back and ask Blanca one other question, but we have, she calls it the tool. We call it the AI Story Builder,
Okay.
and we're in our 5th version, and we have a new agentic version coming out in October. We're going to call it AI Story Genie. But it's designed to help people build stories and then share stories. One of the powers of stories across an organization is you can have a story. If you're, a Maxwell leadership coach, you can tell a story about a great account that you had. And I don't have, if I'm a Maxwell leadership coach, I don't have to be you. I can still tell that story about that customer if it's relevant, resonant. So you can share stories. The one of the home run functions that we're finding more and more, there's also a practice area, a gym, where now people can go and they can practice telling their story real time, on demand, whenever they need to. And it's pretty, so it's really meant to supplement, augment, and we're going to build the training into it
Yep.
but augment and get people using it. Again, it goes to your idea of the world is very complex, and I think people who are, let me say it differently. I think when you can find elegant, what we try to do is find an elegant yet simple solution that normal people could use
Mhm.
and try. And I think that's in almost everything we do, those elegant solutions tend to win out. They're simple and elegant, somebody can execute them. But that's about the AI tool.
Yeah.
I was going to go back and ask Blanca. So you said about the story map and the AI story builder, and you got a sequence and you had to tell it. Anything about story listening?
Well, and I was going to say that's part 2.
He teed you up so well.
Yes. So my first experience was a storytelling. And the storytelling tool actually, it takes you from the beginning of your beginning of your story. What was the struggle there? If there was a tipping point, and then obviously the conclusion of the story. And I just gave a very few words on my own, but the storytelling tool brought it home when I created the story. So if companies can tell their story better, clients will connect, which I love this word connecting, as a connector. The company and the clients will connect with each other just by having a true story, that you can really relate to each other. So I think that's what the relationship relate and connecting, that's when the relationship will start. And
So how
and
does the story
then,
listening tie into all this then?
well, and then the story tool will also help us to validate it, because you can practice back and forth on
Right.
how the story can be better. But also with the story listening is, how do we listen to people in order for us to really come up with a better validation on your story. So the story listening course was very, yeah, that was priceless. I told John that was like fireworks in my brain.
Well, what's making me think about this is, obviously this podcast and most of what I do is talking about leadership, but when like John said, a cohort of sales and so there's internal and external uses within an organization for these concepts and principles and the how-to steps and tools and everything. It's just I'm thinking how much better, it's that whole Richard Branson thing, as where I heard it, was take care of your people and they'll take care of your customers, right? Like, so if you're doing this internally better, what does that mean externally? Are you seeing that, John?
We started out with predominantly sales organizations. And I only started there because I come from the corporate world. And I know that as an executive, people spend training money for salespeople because they generate revenue. So they're revenue generators. What we morphed quickly after that was services organizations who are implementing and creating service and long-term relationships. And now that's even more prevalent in the technology business itself and other companies where SaaS, where it's subscription oriented and they want to retain customers, right? So retention and renewals is huge. We started early in leadership, but we found the place very, very crowded. And about 3 years ago, I brought on a guy, Dave Lynn. He's one of he's the other managing partner, who was at a company called Ankara Solutions. And Dave is a organizational behavior guru, executive coaching guru. And Dave said to me, we need to get into this space because what you do is so different. And everybody thinks listening, well, it's the same thing. And everybody's been to a ton of listening courses. And what we know is that 95% of the people who start to apply our model get ahas. They originally think, oh, this is all the same. And I said, okay, we'll try it a couple of times. And so we have so anyway, we've morphed now more toward leadership. And what we're seeing is Dave, in his practice and his relationships, leaders are now starting to communicate more effectively. And now they're saying we need to spread this out. So we're seeing what you say is, we know that in culture, cult leaders set the culture. And if they start doing it, they say, wow, this is powerful for everybody else. So it's been a journey for us on how we got there. And but
Well, it
again,
sounds like it's
we've kept true
application.
to the sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it sounds like the application is what the journey is exposing more and more how it's relevant to maybe even much broader than maybe you initially thought because it once again it's human relationships, it's human dynamics that you brought up, and all that research you said you did for 3 years, and I'm sure you continue to do even is human dynamics. I mean, what they say, like life would be easy without all the people, right? Like and leadership and
Well, and
sales and everything.
one of the interesting dynamics we're seeing, and it's, I think if you're close to your customers, uh, especially the ones who innovate, you learn things. And we're seeing now 2 customers who are using it from product management. So now they're building new products. So how do they build stories about those products that can arm the sales and pre-sales team and the services team? And then how do they give them the customer story so they're enabled the right way? And what we're seeing is this product management to sales and services and pre-sales, sales and pre-sales to services, and then services completing the story because they know what was the business outcome that occurred.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this loop where now they're saying, we want everybody consistently to understand this. And now they're all talking about the customer in the same, as Blanca said, one of the things we found early on, that there are many ways, many storytellers out there. And we think we have a very simple story map. And we think the power of it is that it's simple, but it's also replicatable, because now you know the story map and Blanca knows the story map and somebody else knows. And now they're talking about the customer in the same language. They're coming
Yeah,
back
because
saying,
you've
what
got
was
a
the
common
struggle?
framework then, right?
They've got a framework that can extend. And I never thought that this is the way it would spread across. But what the executive who brought this to, he says, what you're helping me do, what your process has helped me do, is accelerate time to revenue. So from thinking of a new product innovation, how do I get it out where everybody's out there doing it in a way where we leverage revenue? And so it's an exciting plane for us, because it's something, nothing I ever envisioned. I think there's going to be more of that, right?
And
That's
you know
awesome.
what? When I went to the storytelling um, training, I was so lucky that I was actually with a couple of John's clients there. And guess what? There was a team of people that they work for the same company, and they were starting to build their stories. And they said, you know what? This is the way that now we need to tell the company story to our clients. And it was basically focused on the client, not on the company, is how can we relate better to the client so the client can understand us. But in some of them, they actually have even testimonials that they built, making the client kind of like this, the hero of the story, not the company. It was super interesting how you can even train your salespeople to make the client the hero,
We
not the company.
actually, we actually, Chris, one of the other, and I want to let you take it where you want to go, but just a short, one of the other things that we learned on this journey, that there are types of stories in business they're not totally different, but they're nuanced. So one of them, we segment a customer hero story. We talk about an internal hero story. We talk about lessons learned stories. We talk about why change stories. So there are types of stories, and I don't want to confuse people with it, but there's nuances to them. So if you go deep and get good at this and really good at it, it really changes how you're interacting with somebody. And again, like Blanca said, you got to listen first. If you don't seek first to understand, you're going to tell the wrong story. But there's nuances to it to get better and better and become, we talk about becoming a master communicator. How do you become a master communicator and you be a big differentiator personally and in your company? But let me stop and let you take it where,
No,
because we're
that's awesome. And folks, I mean, we wanted to bring John on because this is powerful. You know, this is so needed in our world today, and definitely in business, but in life in general. And Blanca, like we said, you know, you were fortunate already to go through two different workshops, and I want to hand it over to you to share, because we decided, you know, talking to John, like we wanted to give our listeners a special opportunity as well if they want to go through this training at a discounted rate. Why don't you talk about that? And then we'll also add the details of this in our show notes where people can get the information.
Right. So I am very excited to share that I went through that tool, but I want to also share a little bit about Chris. You're writing a book and you are all about being magnetic, right? How to be a magnetic leader.
Hmm.
And in order for people to connect with that, is being magnetic is how can you really tell your story and how can you tell your story better. And so by talking to John, he was kind enough to say, hey, why don't we invite people in the community and to try this tool and give 50% off to the people that they're listening right now. And we are going to, John is going to share with us a code that we will later on share in the small print. And
Yeah.
but because we would like to people to try the tool, to learn it, and maybe there is a company that say they can say, hey, I want all my people to get to know how to tell the story better, right? And John, would you like to add a little bit to it?
just to clarify. So we train we work with companies as a group, and we also have open workshops where individuals come, coaches come, different people come. Companies send 2 or 3 people, as Blanca said, but and so what we'd like to do is invite the people who've listened to this who are interested to go to our website. And we'll tell you what at www.ci2advisors.com, and you can click on open workshops. And there are two, you can look at your cohort. Are you sales, services, PM, or leader? And then you go down and there are 2 workshops, human connection and storytelling, human connection and story listening. And we'd like to offer you a discount code to go to one of those at a we think a pretty good nice discount that'll get you in, to get you to see what you think. And as you'll learn some of the techniques, and you'll also get access to be using the AI story builder afterwards. So we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you come in and see what you think and get your opinion. I will tell you this, I measure out of the workshop, we measure a bunch of things, but I look at 2 data points. Was this worth your time? And would you refer this to other people? And I will tell you, we have a 95% ratio of people say, yes, this was valuable and worth my time. I can use it. And yes, I'll refer other people. So I will guarantee if you come, you'll be excited and you'll be happy.
Well, and what I love about having the open workshop too that people can attend is, if, like you said, that if it's 1 or 2 or 5 even leaders of a company, they could come and then say, you know what, we need to get this out to our workforce because it's going to help all of us. Then they can talk to you about what that looks like as well. So I feel like this is a great opportunity, folks, to just, come check it out, right? Come take this 50% discount offer for the workshop. These are virtual workshops, right, John?
Yes.
So you can do it from anywhere, and so this is just a great opportunity. John, thanks so much for being with us today. Blanca, thanks for co-hosting with me and also speaking into this because as a participant, because once again, I'm scheduled to go do the workshop soon. I'm excited about it, but you've actually been to both of them already, so you have an advantage and you're a head start on me here.
Yes, and I'm one of the attendees that really it was worth my time, and definitely I will refer it to us, and I would love to for our community to take a look at it. And John, and I believe that if there is a company that would like to send 3 or more, there is also an extra discount. So shoot us an email and we will get you connected.
Yeah, we'll put all this information in the show notes for this episode. But yeah, we want to get people, because we know, and John, I appreciate your heart behind this. It's, you didn't have to do this, but you saw a gap in the market, you saw a gap in just really society, and you really leaned into that. And I think that, as we talk about magnetic leadership and really being able to attract, retain, develop people, this is a huge component of it. So I'm excited about having this conversation. I'm excited about our listeners to be able to go out and check out the workshop and participate because I do believe, just what you have taught and have created here is it is a game changer for even families, right? I mean, if a parent goes to this for work and they go and they learn these things, it's gonna affect things at home. And that's one of my biggest things that I try to promote, I think, is that we're the same person at home and work. I mean, we carry our home baggage to work, we carry our work baggage home, and if we can learn to communicate better and understand and listen better, man, how much more of a powerful thing could that be for families, communities, and the workplace?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for being a magnetic leader, Chris, and thank you for helping us to create a better story, John.
And Chris, I will end my point with, I did get your book and read it and I loved it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, thanks again, guys, and we will end the show
Have a
here.
great
But
day.
we'll, like I said, folks, we will drop the information in the show notes so you can follow up with this, and we hope that you'll check out one of the workshops soon.
Thank you.